I was sitting in my living room, having just completed the transfer of $6,500 to my sister Emma's honeymoon fund for her upcoming wedding to Kyle. The feeling of contributing to their dream trip to Italy filled me with warmth. As a software engineer making six figures, I had always been the family's financial backbone, and supporting Emma's special day felt natural. Then my phone rang. Mom's voice was cold and sharp. "We all agreed you're not welcome at the wedding." The words hit me like a physical blow, and for a moment, I could not process what I had just heard. "Good to know," I replied and hung up immediately. Before I tell you how one phone call led to the most satisfying revenge of my life, let me know in the comments where you are watching from and if you have ever been excluded by family when you were the one supporting them. Hit that like button. But what I did next with that $6,500 will leave you speechless. Let me give you the background on how this devastating betrayal came to be. At 32, I had built a successful career as a senior software engineer at a thriving tech startup, earning $120,000 annually. While my peers were starting families, I had chosen to focus on my career and financial independence. This choice had made me the unofficial family bank for years, always ready to help when others needed support. My family dynamics had been complicated from the start. Mom Patricia had always favored my younger sister Emma, who was 28 and worked as a freelance artist. Where I was driven and independent, Emma was seen as the creative spirit who needed nurturing and protection. Emma's income was sporadic at best, barely covering her basic expenses, while I had been financially stable since graduating college. Emma was marrying Kyle Morrison, a high school teacher with a modest salary who seemed genuinely devoted to her. While I appreciated his kindness, it was clear that their combined income would never support the lifestyle Emma had grown accustomed to with my help. Kyle came from a traditional conservative family in a small town, and I could sense their discomfort with my success and single status from our first meeting. My history of financial support for this family was extensive and well documented. I had paid Emma's college tuition in full, which totaled $40,000 over 4 years. When she graduated and needed time to build her art career, I covered her apartment rent for 2 years. I had bought her a reliable car as a graduation gift, contributed to family vacations, and never missed a birthday or holiday without generous gifts. 6 months before the wedding, Emma had approached me with tears in her eyes, explaining that she and Kyle could not afford the honeymoon they dreamed of. Their savings barely covered the wedding expenses, and the idea of starting their marriage without a proper celebration broke her heart. Without hesitation, I offered to contribute $6,500 for their Italian honeymoon. Plus, I booked and paid for their flights, which cost an additional $2,000. But my generosity did not stop there. Knowing they wanted to buy a house after the wedding, I had also promised a $10,000 contribution toward their down payment. My total wedding-related financial commitment was $18,500, not including the years of previous support that easily exceeded $60,000. However, as the wedding planning progressed, I began noticing subtle changes in family dynamics. Emma became increasingly distant during our conversations about wedding details. When I asked about dress shopping or bridal shower plans, she would give vague answers or change the subject. I was not included in family group chats about wedding preparations, and I noticed that Mom would stop talking when I entered rooms where wedding discussions were happening. Kyle's family had made their feelings about me clear during family gatherings. His mother would make comments about how some women prioritize careers over family and how traditional values create stronger marriages. His father would ask pointed questions about my dating life and express concern about my influence on Emma's expectations for marriage. I began to realize that they saw my success as a threat to their vision of what Emma should become as Kyle's wife. The warning signs were all there, but I had been too focused on supporting Emma's happiness to recognize that my own place in the family was being systematically eroded by people who benefited from my contributions while resenting my independence. The moment I hung up from that devastating phone call with Mom, I immediately tried calling Emma to confirm what I had just heard. The call went straight to voicemail, which had never happened before when family drama was involved. I tried again and again, each time reaching the same automated message. Finally, I sent a direct text. "Did you know about this decision?" Her response came within minutes, and the coldness in her words matched Mom's tone perfectly. "It is our day and our choice. You will understand someday when you find someone who wants to marry you." The cruelty in that message took my breath away. Not only was I being excluded from her wedding, but she was using my single status as a weapon against me. I needed answers, so I called the one family member who had always remained neutral in family conflicts, my cousin Sarah. Sarah's voice was gentle, but shocked when I explained what had happened. "Miriam, I am so sorry. I thought you knew about the family meeting last week. Mom Patricia called it while you were traveling for work." She went on to explain that Emma and Kyle had requested an intimate family wedding, and that Kyle's parents had expressed concerns about my presence making other guests uncomfortable. "But Sarah, what does that even mean? I am immediate family." "The real issue," Sarah said carefully, "is that Kyle's mother told Patricia that you make everyone else feel inadequate with your success and independence. She said having you at the wedding would overshadow Emma's special day and make the other guests feel uncomfortable about their own life choices." The betrayal deepened as Sarah revealed more details. The family expected me to continue my financial support while being relegated to extended family status. They had planned to seat me at a singles table in the back with distant relatives I barely knew. The wedding photographer had been specifically instructed to keep me out of main family photos, and Emma had requested that I not participate in any traditional family moments during the ceremony. I drove straight to my parents' house, needing to have this conversation face to face. When I arrived, Mom was in the kitchen, and her defensive posture told me she had been expecting this confrontation. "Patricia," I said, using her name instead of Mom for the first time in years, "I need you to explain to me how you can justify excluding your own daughter while expecting her to fund your other daughter's wedding." Her response was practiced as if she had rehearsed it. "Emma deserves her perfect day without complications. You are too successful, and it makes Kyle's family uncomfortable. Sometimes family requires sacrifices for the greater good." And what exactly is this greater good? Making sure Kyle's family approves of Emma by hiding the fact that she has a successful sister? You do not need to be at every family event. You have your career, your independence. Emma needs this marriage to work, and Kyle's family's acceptance is crucial for that success. The conversation revealed layers of planning that had happened behind my back. Patricia admitted that she had promised Kyle's family that I would maintain a low profile throughout the engagement period and wedding process. She had assured them that my financial contributions came with no expectations of recognition or inclusion. Emma arrived during our argument, and I hoped she would clarify this misunderstanding. Instead, she sided completely with our mother, adding fuel to the fire with her justifications. "Miriam, you have everything already. You have your career, your money, your independence. I just want one day where I can be the center of attention without everyone talking about my successful big sister. Emma, I have never tried to overshadow you. I have always supported your dreams and celebrated your achievements. Your presence is your overshadowing, Kyle said as he walked through the door. My family wants Emma to feel like the star of our wedding, and having you there would just remind everyone of what she is not accomplishing in her career. I realized in that moment that I was dealing with a coordinated effort to diminish my role in the family while maintaining access to my financial support. I pulled out my phone and calculated the numbers that had been weighing on my mind all day. Let me understand this correctly. You want me to contribute $18,500 to this wedding, but you do not want me to attend because my success makes people uncomfortable. Emma's response was dismissive. Money cannot buy your way into everything, Miriam. Some things are about love and family, not financial contributions. And what exactly have you contributed to this family relationship besides expecting me to solve your financial problems? Kyle stepped forward, his voice condescending. Some people need to learn their place in relationships. Not everything is about money and career success. I gave them one final opportunity to reconsider. Reverse this decision, or I reverse my financial support. Choose carefully, because this is not a negotiation. Patricia's voice was sharp with indignation. We will not be blackmailed by your financial gifts. Family means supporting each other without conditions. Emma added the final insult. You are being controlling and manipulative with money. This just proves that Kyle's family was right about you. That was the moment I realized they had never seen my financial support as generous gifts from a loving sister and daughter. They saw my money as an entitlement, something they deserved, simply because we shared DNA. If I was not family enough to attend Emma's wedding, then I was not family enough to pay for it. I drove home in a state of cold, calculated fury that I had never experienced before. By the time I reached my apartment, I knew exactly what needed to be done. If they wanted to treat me like an outsider while expecting insider benefits, I would show them exactly what life looked like without my financial support. The first action I took was accessing the joint savings account where I had deposited the honeymoon fund. With a few clicks on my banking app, I transferred the $6,500 back to my personal account. The transaction was completed within minutes, and I felt a surge of satisfaction as I watched the money return to where it belonged. Next, I called the travel agent who had booked Emma and Kyle's flights to Italy. Since I had purchased the tickets with my credit card and they were in my name as the purchaser, the cancellation was straightforward. The agent confirmed that due to the timing and booking policies, I would receive a full refund of the $2,000 I had spent on their flights. I then contacted the realtor who was handling their house purchase. The down payment check I had written was still being processed, and I was able to stop payment before it cleared. Another $10,000 returned to my account, bringing my recovered funds to $18,500 in total. But I was not finished. Over the months of wedding planning, I had also contributed to various upgrades and extras that Emma wanted but could not afford. I called the wedding planner who had been coordinating several services that I was funding. I canceled the flower arrangement upgrade that I had sponsored for $1,000, withdrew from the wedding venue bar tab guarantee for $1,500, and canceled the photographer's family portrait package add-on for $800. By morning, I had systematically removed over $10,000 in additional support that had been woven throughout their wedding plans. The beautiful, elaborate celebration they had envisioned was about to become a much more modest affair. The phone call started at 9 a.m. sharp. Emma's voice was pure hysteria when she called. "Miriam, what have you done?" The travel agent called and said our flights are canceled. The wedding planner is saying services are being downgraded. What is happening? My response was calm and measured. I respected your decision about family boundaries. Since I am not welcome at your wedding, I assumed you did not want my financial participation either. Kyle called next, his voice shaking with anger. You are ruining our wedding. How can you be so vindictive over hurt feelings? Kyle, I thought you believed that some people need to learn their place. I am simply staying in mine. As an outsider, I would not want to overstep by contributing to an event I am not invited to attend. Patricia's call came an hour later, and her screaming was so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear. You are destroying family bonds over a single day. How can you be so selfish? I am not destroying anything. I am simply honoring the boundaries that you set. If I am not family enough to be included, then I am not family enough to be expected to pay. The consequences began revealing themselves throughout the day. The travel agent called Emma directly about the canceled flights, informing her that booking new tickets to Italy at this late notice would cost $4,000 instead of the original $2,000. The wedding planner called about missing payments and explained that without my financial guarantees, several services would need to be downgraded or canceled entirely. Most devastating of all, the realtor called about the house purchase. Without the down payment, Emma and Kyle would lose the property they had been planning to buy after their honeymoon. The sellers had other interested buyers and would not hold the property without the committed funds. By evening, an emergency family meeting had been called. Extended family members who rarely involve themselves in conflicts were suddenly reaching out to mediate. Uncle Tom, Patricia's brother, called with a diplomatic tone. Miriam family forgives. Everyone is just stressed about wedding planning. Surely you can come back to the table and work this out. Aunt Linda followed with her own appeal. Emma is just nervous about her big day. You know how brides get emotional about their weddings. Cousin Mike, who had never contributed a penny to any family celebration, called to lecture me about being petty over hurt feelings. The irony was not lost on me that people who had never supported the family financially were now telling me how I should handle my money. I prepared a detailed breakdown of my financial contributions to share with these well-meaning relatives. When they learned that I had been supporting Emma's lifestyle and family expenses for years, their attitudes shifted dramatically. None of them had realized the extent of my contributions, and many were shocked to discover that Emma had been living well above her means thanks to my support. The most surprising call came from Kyle's parents, who had initiated this entire disaster with their demands about my exclusion. Kyle's father attempted to negotiate his tone, awkward and uncomfortable. Miriam, we may have been hasty in our concerns. Perhaps we can find you appropriate seating at the wedding after all. Kyle's mother added her own stilted attempt at reconciliation. Maybe a small table toward the back would work well for everyone involved. My response was swift and decisive. The price of admission just went up to $25,000 payable in advance. I am no longer interested in subsidizing celebrations where I am not wanted. The silence that followed told me everything I needed to know. They had finally realized that they had insulted and excluded the primary sponsor of the wedding they wanted their son to have. As the wedding week approached, the chaos intensified. Emma was forced to downgrade from the elegant banquet hall she had chosen to a community center that was available on short notice. The honeymoon destination changed from Italy to a local bed and breakfast that they could afford with their limited savings. The house purchase fell through completely, leaving them to continue renting Emma's small apartment. The guest list had to be cut from 150 people to 60 to accommodate the smaller venue and reduced budget. Emma's wedding dress budget was slashed, forcing her to buy a gown from a consignment shop instead of the boutique where she had been planning to shop. Every aspect of their celebration was being downsized because they had chosen status over family loyalty. The final attempts at reconciliation came in the days leading up to the wedding. Patricia offered a compromise that revealed how little she understood about respect and family dynamics. Miriam, you can attend the ceremony, but not the reception. That way, you are included, but not overwhelming. Emma's offer was even more insulting. You can come if you promise not to bring attention to yourself or talk about your job. Just blend in with everyone else. Kyle's suggestion was the most tone-deaf of all. We will seat you with the other single people. You will have a lot in common with them. My response remained consistent. I am not available that day. I will be busy investing in relationships that value me. On the wedding day itself, I received updates from cousin Sarah, who attended and reported on the stark contrast between the celebration they had planned and the reality they were experiencing. The community center venue was functional, but lacked the elegance of their original choice. Kyle's family was visibly disappointed with the downgraded celebration, and their comments about the family drama overshadowed much of the actual wedding festivities. Emma had an emotional breakdown during the reception, grieving the loss of the dreams they had sacrificed for the sake of excluding me. The irony was profound in their effort to have a perfect day without my presence. They had created a day that fell far short of perfect because they no longer had my support. The aftermath of the wedding was swift and dramatic. Within 48 hours, I had received 23 missed calls from various family members, each more desperate than the last. But it was the 24th call, a voicemail message from Emma, that would change everything. Her voice was broken and raw with emotion as she left a message that lasted nearly 10 minutes. Miriam, I have been awake all night thinking about what we lost. It was not just the money, though, that hurt us badly. It was you. I realized during my wedding that the person I most wanted to share my happiness with was not there, and it was my fault. I let Kyle's family convince me that your success was something to be ashamed of instead of something to be proud of. I chose their approval over your love, and I will regret that for the rest of my life. Patricia left her own message the first time I had ever heard her acknowledge a mistake in our relationship. I failed you as a mother. I let my fear of conflict with Kyle's family override my obligation to protect and support both of my daughters equally. You deserved better from me. The extended family reaction was overwhelmingly supportive once they understood the full scope of what had happened. Cousin Sarah became the primary communication bridge, helping to facilitate conversations between family members who were trying to understand how the situation had deteriorated so badly. Uncle Tom called to apologize personally. We had no idea how much you had been contributing to keep this family stable. If we had known, we never would have suggested that you just accept being excluded. Other relatives began reaching out individually, many admitting that they had thought my contributions were modest gifts rather than substantial financial support. The revelation that I had been the family's primary financial backbone for years shocked them and shifted their perspective on the wedding conflict entirely. Meanwhile, Emma and Kyle's marriage was struggling under the weight of immediate financial pressure and family disappointment. The wedding debt had consumed most of their savings, leaving them unable to enjoy their honeymoon or start their married life on solid footing. Kyle's family continued to express disappointment about the wedding quality, creating tension between the newlyweds about whose fault the situation really was. Within 3 months, Emma and Kyle had started marriage counseling to deal with the stress and resentment that had built up around their wedding experience. Kyle was beginning to understand the extent of my past support and the sacrifice I had made for his family's comfort. The realization that he had alienated someone who had been genuinely invested in Emma's happiness was weighing heavily on his conscience. For me, the experience had been liberating in unexpected ways. With the $18,500 I had recovered, plus the money I no longer felt obligated to spend on family financial emergencies, I was able to make a down payment on a beautiful downtown condo that I had been considering for months. I enrolled in a professional development course in Italy, ironically taking the trip that Emma and Kyle had planned for their honeymoon. My social life improved dramatically as I invested time and energy into relationships with people who valued my independence rather than resenting it. Through a work conference, I met David, a fellow software engineer who admired my career achievements and financial independence. Our relationship developed naturally built on mutual respect and shared goals rather than obligation and expectation. 6 months after the wedding, the true test of our changed family dynamics came when Patricia needed surgery and the family faced substantial medical bills. In the past, everyone would have automatically assumed that I would handle the financial burden without question. Instead, I established clear loan terms with interest rates and repayment schedules for any financial assistance I provided. The formal business arrangement shocked the family, but it also forced them to acknowledge that my previous generosity had been taken for granted rather than appreciated. No longer would I provide family gifts to people who did not treat me with the same respect they expected in return. Emma's personal growth during this period was remarkable to witness. Marriage counseling had helped her recognize that she had internalized Kyle's family's values about what women should prioritize in their lives. She began to appreciate my independence and career success rather than seeing them as threats to her own choices. Her attempts to rebuild our relationship were genuine and consistent, marked by small gestures that showed real understanding of the damage that had been done. Kyle's perspective shifted as well when he received a promotion at work that helped him understand the satisfaction and challenges of career ambition. He began to see my professional success as an achievement to admire rather than a characteristic to criticize. His attempts to make amends included direct conversations where he acknowledged that the wedding decision had been influenced by family pressure rather than his true feelings. The transformation in family dynamics was gradual but significant. Patricia began attending therapy to address the favoritism patterns that had shaped our family relationships for decades. Holiday gatherings became more equitable, with gift-giving becoming reciprocal rather than one-sided. Most importantly, family decisions that affected me began to include my input rather than expecting my compliance after the fact. 1 year after the wedding, we had established what I called the new normal. My relationship with my immediate family was limited but respectful, built on clear boundaries rather than assumed obligations. David and I had become serious about our future together, discussing marriage and shared goals in ways that felt healthy and balanced. The deeper wisdom I gained from this experience was understanding the difference between being generous and being taken advantage of. For years, I had confused the two, thinking that my value as a family member was measured by how much I could sacrifice for others. I learned that love without respect is not sustainable, and that setting boundaries actually strengthens relationships rather than weakening them. Emma and Kyle eventually found their financial footing, though it took them nearly 2 years to recover from the wedding debt and missed house opportunity. On their second anniversary, Emma wrote me a handwritten letter acknowledging the mistakes that had been made and expressing genuine appreciation for the support I had always provided. Kyle sent his own separate apology, admitting that his family's pressure had influenced poor decisions that he now regretted. The gradual rebuilding of trust happened through consistent, respectful behavior rather than dramatic gestures or emotional appeals. Our family learned to operate with a new dynamic where my success was celebrated rather than minimized, and where mutual support flowed in both directions rather than being a one-way expectation. 2 years later, when David and I announced our engagement, the family's response was overwhelmingly supportive and celebratory. Emma offered to help with wedding planning, not as someone who expected free services, but as someone who wanted to contribute to my happiness in the same way I had always contributed to hers. The difference in attitude was profound and healing. The final lesson that emerged from this painful experience was about the importance of teaching people how to value you properly. Money spent without respect is not generosity. It is enabling destructive behavior patterns. Sometimes, the people who love you most need the clearest boundaries, and the most loving thing you can do is refuse to accept treatment that diminishes your worth. My self-worth was no longer tied to family approval or the amount of financial support I could provide. I had learned to invest in relationships that honored my contributions while maintaining my independence and career focus. The family relationships that survived this crisis became stronger because they were based on genuine respect rather than financial dependency. They say money cannot buy love, but I learned that day that love without respect is not worth buying. Sometimes the best investment you can make is in teaching people how to treat you properly, even if the lesson costs them everything they took for granted. Have you ever been excluded by family members who still expected your support? How do you handle relationships where love and respect seem to be separate issues? Share your experiences in the comments below, and do not forget to hit that like button if this story resonated with your own family dynamics. Subscribe for more real-life stories about setting boundaries with family members who take your generosity for granted. Please share this video with someone who needs to hear that their worth is not determined by how much they sacrifice for people who do not appreciate them. Remember, you teach people how to treat you by what you are willing to accept, and sometimes the most loving thing you can do is show them the consequences of their choices. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope it gives you the courage to value yourself as much as you value your relationships with others.